Hey everybody, it's Drew from Como Comic Books, and thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel once again this week. We're going to mix it up a little bit this week and do something we haven't done before, so I hope you all like it. Stay tuned for our top 10 comics to buy on a $100 budget. See you in a second. Welcome back, everybody. My name's Drew Stewart, and if we're just meeting, I am the owner of Como Comic Books. We are a Columbia, Missouri-based comic book vendor. You can find us at comic conventions and shows all around the region, selling comic books, toys, all sorts of good stuff. We'll get right into it today. This is something we haven't done before, so I hope you all like it. A lot of things going on right now, and one of the few things you can do while you're stuck at home is you can shop eBay, you can get on different comic book vendors or retailers' websites, and shop for comics. The market's still hot. There's a lot of books that are worth chasing down. And what we're going to give you today is just a small sample of books that if you have $100 that's burning a hole in your pocket and you want to put all of that money towards one single book, we're going to give you 10 options for that. A piece of advice that I give is if you're looking to invest in a comic book, no matter what that book is, look at your budget and determine what the highest grade copy of that book is that you can afford. And what that's going to do is if you are purely looking at the book as an investment, the higher grade copy of the book you get, the more likely it is to increase at a larger percentage compared to a lower grade copy of the book. If you can only afford low grade copies of certain like mega keys are still mega keys, but in general, a key issue, if you can invest in a very fine copy or better, you're going to see a greater return, especially if you're getting into the book earlier than the majority of the market. So the overarching caveat to all of this is when you're trying to invest in a book, make sure that you're buying a very fine copy or better if you're able to. With that in mind, the books that we're going to be talking about today are going to be books that you can get a very fine or higher grade copy for $100 or less. To explain how we came up with the list, we're looking at comics that are essentially priced from $75 to $100 for a very fine or higher copy. There are going to be a ton of books out there in various grades that are going to fall into this $100 category, but for the purposes of this video, we're focusing on books that between $75 and $100 you can get a very fine, so an 8.0 or higher grade copy. So with all that, let's get into our list. The first book on our list is Avengers Annual 10. Now, this book has been hot and cold over the years. With Fox being purchased by Disney, there's a lot of anticipation surrounding the X-Men being incorporated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And one of the characters that kind of has one of the easiest paths into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, is Rogue, her long-established history with Captain Marvel. So for that reason, right now you can get a pretty solid copy of Avengers Annual 10 for $100 or less, and I think that's a smart buy right now. It's a book that has been a solid performer over the long term. I think it's going to be a great book to pursue in the short term if you don't already have it, because sooner or later, you're going to see Rogue pull into the MCU, and that book is just going to continue to appreciate. And the good thing about it is there are a lot of really collectible copies of it out there. You may even be able to find a particularly nice copy at a good price. The next book on our list is Thor 337, the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. Thor is another one of the MCU characters that is continuing on post the Infinity Saga. So he's getting out into space, running around with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there have been some Easter eggs, thrown into the MCU up to this point regarding Beta Ray Bill. But the further Thor's storyline progresses, the more likely it is that sooner or later we're going to encounter Beta Ray Bill. Thor 337 has been hot for a little while now. It looks like the prices may be coming down. That initial rush that started sometime last summer seems to kind of be simmering down just a shade. So right now looks like a pretty good time to seek out that book. Our next entry is She-Hulk #1. This book has been on a steady climb for several years now. I remember buying these out of boxes at shows for $6 and $7 a piece, and it just keeps going higher and higher. It's to the point where now finding a really nice copy for around $100 may give you a bit of a fit. So keep your eyes open. There are still a whole lot of copies of this book available. If you don't have it yet, seek out She-Hulk #1, the first appearance of She-Hulk, and put that one in your collection. Next up is a book that I think is just a slam dunk. There's very little risk on this book, and that is Amazing Spider-Man 361, the first appearance of Carnage. The Venom sequel is already in production. Amazing Spider-Man 361 is one of those rare 90s books that actually carries its weight. You know, it's one of the few books that was published in that era that has had and continues to have some significant value to it. With Carnage being confirmed for the next Venom movie, the character's general fan base, Carnage has, since his inception, been a very popular character. The price on this book has actually come down a little bit. It was running more like $115, $125 for high grade copies. Right now, it's kind of turned down just a shade. Right now would be a great time to go after that book. Next up, Sandman #1, the first appearance of Dream or Morpheus from the Vertigo line. Sandman is a classic in comic books. The story is amazing. If you haven't read it, I recommend picking up the trades and reading it. But due to the love there is in the community for this story, it is something you hear being talked about fairly regularly as far as being developed into TV or movies. And it looks like now we've actually got a decent foothold and that production is ongoing on a Sandman story. And with that, interest in Sandman #1 has taken off, but it still fits in our category. You can still find a really nice copy of Sandman #1 from Vertigo for that $100 mark. If you do not have Sandman #1, now is the time to start looking for that, because once the series hits, I think it's safe to say that you're going to see the value of that book continue to rise. Going to mix it up on you a little bit now. Our next book is actually a magazine, and that is Deadly Hands of Kung Fu #19, which is the first appearance of the White Tiger. Along with the first appearance of the White Tiger, it has my absolute favorite cover from the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazine series. Just an awesome Iron Fist cover. So, you know, if you're a cover collector, this one should really appeal to you. That said, with Shang-Chi in development, hopefully we'll see Iron Fist come back around. The Kung Fu universe of Marvel seems to be a direction that is prime for development right now, and White Tiger is one of those essential characters. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 19, the Marvel magazine, is a book I would be actively searching for right now. And again, you should be able to find a really nice copy for right around $100. Next on the list is a Todd McFarlane classic, Incredible Hulk 340. Features a great Wolverine versus the Hulk battle, and it's also one of Todd McFarlane's most memorable covers. Definitely the most memorable from his Incredible Hulk run. This book is more of a slow burn, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be a book you're going to see that is going to take off and just gain value by leaps and bounds. I feel like it is a safe, steady bet that due to the classic nature of the cover, the desirability of it, it is a book that as it ages and becomes slightly harder to pick up year after year, it's a book that you continue to see the value creep up by $5, $10 fairly steadily. If not annually, then every other year you can usually see that book move up just a little bit more. So if you're looking to increase your Incredible Hulk collection, I would start with issue 340. Next on our list is DC Comics Presents number 47, which is the first appearance of He-Man in comic books. So we've all seen The Toys That Made Us, and we know the story behind He-Man and the comic books that came with the figures. Part of that all was getting the character out into DC Comics, and that came to fruition in DC Comics Presents number 47. There's a lot of interest in this property right now. You've got Kevin Smith developing a new cartoon. I think you're going to see this book continue to climb. It's not a particularly easy book to find just in general. DC Comics Presents wasn't a book that was in, 85% of people's pull lists back in the day, like Amazing Spider-Man or X-Men or Detective Comics, something like that. It's not as readily available as you're digging through boxes. You can walk through most show floors and you'll find a copy on somebody's wall. You may just not have the variety to choose from if you really want to dial in and get one that is a specific grade or presents in a certain way. With that in mind, I would begin looking for DC Comics Presents 47 if you're a He-Man fan. Next up, we've got Uncanny X-Men 141. This, like Incredible Hulk 340, falls in the classic cover category. Not only is this a classic cover, the storyline of Days of Future Past is one of the greatest X-Men stories ever told, and the cover on this book is just legendary. It can be hard to find in really high grade due to some of the dark colors around the edges. It's notorious for spine pops, but thankfully X-Men was in such high demand back in the day. These things are everywhere. Despite the fact that they are everywhere, it's still going to cost you the better part of $100 to get a particularly nice copy of this book. With that in mind, it's still a book that has increased very steadily over the last several years. I remember 5 years ago, I was selling this book for $50, $60, maybe $75 if it was a particularly nice copy. So it has appreciated a fair amount in the last few years. So if you're an X-Men fan, make sure you got Uncanny X-Men 141 on your list. The last book on our list is Daredevil 131, the first appearance of Bullseye. This is a book that has come back down some after Bullseye was included in the last season of the Daredevil show. When a person thinks of Daredevil, they think of two bad guys. You've got the Kingpin and you've got Bullseye. Bullseye being Daredevil's primary nemesis, one of the key bad actors in Frank Miller's Daredevil run, up to and including the death of Elektra, makes this book highly sought after. It is a blue chip from the late Bronze Age. So if you're a Daredevil fan, be sure to keep your eyes out for Daredevil 131 as you're out there walking the floor of your next show. If you enjoyed the content of today's video or any of our other videos, we invite you to click subscribe and ring the bell so you're notified every time we upload a new video. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.